Welcome back to CryptosRUs. I am George. We're all George. So, happy Sunday. What's coming this week? Well, I believe there's a lot coming, so get ready, especially if you are a Bitcoin holder. So, let's talk about this coming week and what to expect. So, welcome, guys. Hopefully, you guys are doing good today. You know who is doing good? Well, I don't know. I couldn't say who, but Bitcoin, that's what I meant. Bitcoin is doing good today. 27.6, we're touching upon our previous local high, which is right around 27.7. So we're pressing against it again. So does that mean Bitcoin is ready to push past 28, possibly get into the 29 and 30s by tonight? Maybe. Bitcoin has been gaining a lot of strength recently due to, as you guys know, banking fears. And we're going to get a lot more of that this coming week. So that's why I've said get ready, because I believe this week we will hear several big announcements or even news that are pretty damning to the banking industry. And I think that's going to help Bitcoin further. And plus, we have one other major event that's happening. First, let's start out with this. Credit Suisse going under. Credit Suisse got an injection of $54 billion. It's not enough. So now the Swiss authorities is basically forcing a bank to buy them. And it's UBS. And UBS is lowballing Credit Suisse by $7 billion. So Credit Suisse, I think their overall market cap is worth about $8 billion or $9 billion, and UBS is offering to buy them for $1 billion because they don't really want to buy them. This is basically forced upon them by the Swiss authorities, right? And Credit Suisse is, of course, not happy. But then again, if no bailout happens, right, they could simply go under and get zero. Okay, so that is the latest thing. Credit Suisse is a huge bank out of Switzerland, very well connected everywhere, right? A bank deemed too large to fail, yet seems like no one really wants to touch them. So that we will see today or tomorrow. You know, there will be a conclusion. Does Credit Suisse, their board, push back on it? Does the shareholders, do they even have a right to vote on this? I don't know. But it seems like this is happening. It's at a very low bid, right? So, and keep you guys informed. Back in 2007, okay, before the last banking crisis, Credit Suisse was worth about 90 billion, and they're being offered 1 billion today. Okay, so obviously that's no good. It's almost as bad as inflation. But yeah, you can see that's no good, not good at all. But you know what? Something else that caught my eye that's very, very troubling is this. Reuters reported that Midsize Banks in the U.S., part of this Midsize Bank Coalition of America, and I don't know who's in there. I'm sure I could look it up later. But Midsize Banks are asking the FDIC to insure all deposits for 2 years. Now, why do you think they're asking the FDIC to do this? Right now, FDIC insurance is $250K per account, $500,000 for a joint account. But why do you think this is happening? Because there's a ton of withdrawals. That's why, right? You put the two and two together. There's bank runs happening right now. There's a lot of people withdrawing their money. So these banks, they're like, hey, we need to plug this. How do we plug this? You know, let's ask Big Daddy FDIC to insure all deposits. Just raise the limits up infinitely, right? And then we'll be fine. But can FDIC really make that promise? Do they really have that much money to be able to cover all deposits for 2 years? The answer is no, they don't. You know, I speculated a couple weeks ago that maybe FDIC raises their insurance limit from 250,000 maybe to 500,000 or $1 million, maybe something like that could be in the works. But to insure all deposits going up to billions, there's no way in hell they can do that, right? Unless the Fed turns on their money printer and just hands trillions to the FDIC and then tells the FDIC, go ahead, insure all deposits. But this is what makes me think that this week we may hear some more damning news, because if they're desperately asking for all deposits to be insured for 2 years, that means there are a lot of money being withdrawn, and we may hear about 1 or 2 or 3 that may be going under. Okay, so quite troubling, But again, it's strengthening Bitcoin right now, right? Bitcoin is gaining strength because of all the banks having problems right now. People hate banks. I don't know of anyone that truly love banks or love the bank they're banking with right now. I mean, I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone. Just like I don't know anyone that owns a Land Rover or Range Rover that doesn't have it, in a repair shop every other week. It just doesn't exist, right? And right now, Biden is also talking to Warren Buffett because he's just, he wants to get his advice. I don't know what Warren Buffett's going to say about this, but you know what? It is what it is. And then also what's concerning is BlackRock. Larry Fink just sent out an annual letter. And within it, he had some crypto takeaways, okay? And one of them is about Bitcoin and how the entire banking system seems to be melting down. This is paraphrasing him. This is not his exact quote, because if it was his exact quote, all banks would be in deep trouble if Larry Fink says this. But anyways, to paraphrase, he does seem to think that the banking system is melting down or in trouble right now, and that's why Bitcoin has emerged as a potential safe haven for investors trying to protect their savings. And that's exactly right. We didn't have this back in 2008. We didn't have it 2009 really, because it was just released, Bitcoin, I mean. So this is the first time in history when the banks are, having problems and collapsing, and people have alternative to park their money. It didn't happen before. It didn't exist. So good, right? So that's why you're seeing more people pull out money from their banks and put into Bitcoin. And I think this week we're going to get some more news, some bad news for the banks, which could drive Bitcoin even higher, right? But there's one other thing, and I think you guys know this, okay? The FOMC meeting. The FOMC meeting is going to start on Tuesday, and Powell is going to have a press release on Wednesday, and I will be live streaming that for you guys. So everyone is trying to predict what Powell and the Board of Governors, what they're going to do. 50 basis points is now off the table. So really, it's either 25 basis point or 0 basis point. I think it's 0, which I think will be absolutely fantastic for the entire market, all markets, okay? But I think it's going to be 0. But right now, there's still a greater chance at 25 basis point is 0. So we will see. This week will be absolutely huge because of that. We got all the economic data already. Right, everything that shows that the labor market is still strong, but a little bit softer than the month before. The economic data in terms of like retail sales and home sales and wholesale sales, right, have softened. So those are all good things, right? But the banking stuff can't be ignored. So I think they have to take that very, very seriously. Especially since now, banks are begging the FDIC to insure all deposits. That should tell you how bad and how desperate some of these banks are right now, okay? And I know Powell knows. He has inside information that we don't. And I'm pretty sure they have a good estimate of how much money USD is flowing out of the bank. So I think it's going to be 0, okay? And as a reminder, and CZ likes to remind people of this, no one could print BTC out of thin air because supposedly, just with a few bank failures, the Fed had to print out about $300 billion. Okay, $300 billion just from a few banks that they had to bail out. Imagine if they had to bail out everyone. Imagine if FDIC has to insure all deposits. How many trillions they have to print, right? You can't do that with Bitcoin. You can't apply quantitative easing or tightening or punch some numbers in a computer and just get trillions more. You can't do it. You can't do it. This is why people are recognizing Bitcoin is the way. And look at this. We're at 27.7. We're so close to breaking 28. So close. Let's see if we can do it by the end of the stream. But anyways, so there's that. You know, we got a big FOMC meeting coming up. And we'll see. We'll see what happens this week. But in the meantime, as for Bitcoin, you guys know Bitcoin is doing very well. And I've been telling you guys about the fundamental. The fundamental of Bitcoin has never been better. People don't quite understand that because people only think the price is I guess the only reflection of fundamentals, right? No, it's actually far, far from it, right? For example, this is part of fundamentals. The addresses, how many people that actually hold a SAT or a Satoshi, right? Or Bitcoin, just any amount. Number of non-zero addresses, all-time high at nearly 45 million, okay? That doesn't even mean 45 million people own Bitcoin because a lot of people, you guys know, have multiple addresses. You have like 5 addresses, possibly, or even 10. You have many wallets, right? So you really divide that by 5 or you divide that by 3. You have about maybe, I'm going to guess, maybe 10 million people on the planet that has Bitcoin. 10 million out of 8 billion, nothing, right? But consider yourself early, really, really early. Wait until 1 billion people on the planet does own Bitcoin. Where will Bitcoin be at that point, right? But this is part of fundamental. Address, all-time high, has never been higher. Even when Bitcoin was at 69,000, the addresses, you know, was not this high, or this many, I should say. Supply last active 2 years, meaning Bitcoin that hasn't moved for 2 years being held by you and I and now the big boys and everyone else, all-time high. Again, when Bitcoin was at 69,000, this was still lower. 52%, over 52% of Bitcoin in existence has been held for longer than 2 years. Well, what about 10 years? Okay, still. All-time high. This doesn't have a percentage, but it shows you a vast amount of Bitcoin that hasn't moved in 10 years. These are the ultra holders, right? The ones that where their hands are completely made of diamond hand holders. So, fundamentals of Bitcoin never been better. And there's so much more that I show you guys, and I'll show more as we continue forward. But I think we're going to get more of this goodness going forward. And, of course, if you're looking at technicals, right, we officially have broken out of this trend line. And just like 2019, when we broke out of that trend line, we went up 150%. Right, so we go get 150% gain from where we are now, which will drive us to like 50,000 within a matter of months. Well, it happened almost around the same time frame too. That's the funny thing. This breakout that happened in 2019 was around May. Right now we're breaking out a little bit early, but almost April, so it's almost like the same months too. And once that breakout happened in 2019, it went up really, really quickly, really fast, really quickly. So can we see that within the next month or two where we break out to 40 and 50s, right? Just yesterday, I covered how the ex-CTO of Coinbase believes that Bitcoin could break out to $1 million in 90 days. That's insane, okay? Because he believes all banking is going to collapse within 90 days. If that happens, Bitcoin will go up to $1 million within 90 days, but I don't think it's going to happen that soon. But who knows? You know, we can't predict the future, but we are following the same path as before, and we're seeing some very, very good things happen right now. Right now. All right, we're at 27.7. We're looking good. We're right at that previous level right here, right? You got to break out, go to 28.8. That's what we're looking forward to. All right, guys, let's do some Q&A. Now, I know a lot of people, I see in the comments, people ask me, what's wrong with alts? What's wrong with Polygon? What's wrong with Cardano? What's wrong with Solana? Why are they not moving as much as Bitcoin? Right? I have told you guys this. When there is a market recovery, Bitcoin leads the way. Bitcoin is the big daddy. Bitcoin carries the market. Alts do not carry the market. But every single cycle, people fall for this trap. They think that alts will move faster, which they do towards the end, but they go too heavy in alts. And during periods like this, it kind of sucks because you see Bitcoin ramping upwards and alts not really moving. That is usually the case. That's why when I suggest people to have 50, 25, 25 as their portfolio breakup, meaning 50% in Bitcoin, 25% in big caps, 25% in small caps, right? There's a reason for that 50% in Bitcoin. When it carries, it's great. When it starts rocketing, it's great, right? But when we all fall, like during down periods, Bitcoin's strength also is great because it doesn't fall as much as the others, right? So having said that, alts will recover, right? This is not altcoin season. Altcoin season comes at the tail end. So whatever recovery we have seen is great, but as you notice, a lot of altcoins are still very off from their previous high, right? It will come. You just have to be patient about them coming back up. All right, let's see here. Derby Knowledge says, I believe the Fed will pause. I think so. I think it's going to be 0, but we'll see. Jack Daniels, I think Stacks is interesting for dApp makers, you know, that want to be exclusive to Bitcoin. I think it could be interesting. It makes Bitcoin have more use case also. And obviously with the recent boom of NFTs on Bitcoin, the ordinals, I think it could be good for Bitcoin. Bruno says, what pisses me off the most is bankers take our money, gamble with it, yet there's no recourse. That's exactly true. I mean, if you're in the U.S., you have FDIC insurance, right? But FDIC only covers so much. So I don't know about in other countries how much the insurance is for bank deposits. I'm sure there's some kind of amount, right? But ultimately, they gamble, they're highly leveraged, and they're not to be trusted. You would figure banks that have been operating for hundreds of years, they know what they're doing, right? They have to be smarter than you and I. There's no way they can mismanage people's money, right? If that was the case, then no banks will ever have problems or ever go under. And they go under, seems like, way too often. Eli, will the remaining 17 million Bitcoins be enough to be a world reserve? Well, I mean, that's the beauty of Bitcoin. You could break it down into sats, right? Obviously, there's not enough for for everyone to be a whole coiner. Not even enough for every millionaire to be a whole coiner. So people have to settle with sats, like having 5 sats or 10 sats or 1,000 sats, right? If you break it out like that, there's enough for the world. Noah, do you think this is pure BTC season, or will alts follow as they did? I just got done responding to that. They will follow, but you got to give it time. Bitcoin leads the way right now, and Bitcoin has always led the way, but especially now with bank fears and bank runs, more people are parking their money in Bitcoin, and yeah, that's the reason. Alts will come back, but you got to wait. You got to be patient. Why hasn't Bitcoin become mainstream yet? Because there's too many people that ignore. Just as a general thing, right? I've talked to a lot of people and just asked them, "Hey, do you invest? Do you invest?" And they say no. I mean, vast majority of people out there don't even invest. They don't even know what that means. They don't even know what stocks are about, bonds, ETF, mutual funds. Most people that are working, they may put money into their 401k and that's it, right? So just from an investment standpoint, I don't know the percentages, but if I'm just guessing, I would say 80% of Americans don't even invest. So obviously, if 80% of them people don't invest, then people who invest in Bitcoin is much smaller than that. So it's going to take time. It's going to take time, but will it get to a point where everyone invests in Bitcoin? I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. There's just too many people that are they just don't care, right? They don't want to pay attention. They don't care about money. Everyone is different. Interactive, thank you. Devon. Looking forward to the 2025 summer. I am too. Good morning. Your thoughts on IMX? Future. Are you just asking that Lazaro because it's been pumping? I've covered IMX. It's a layer 2 that concentrates on gaming and NFTs. They do have promise. ETH is keeping pace with BTC well and is above the 2021 low point. Unlike BTC, do you consider ETH an alt? Yes, ETH is an alt. Everything that's not Bitcoin is an alt. Let's just get that out of the way. Everything that's not Bitcoin is an alt. And overall, ETH has been keeping up with Bitcoin, but it hasn't surpassed it. It's still lower. So you could see if you go back 90 days, ETH is up 52%, Bitcoin is up 66%, right? So it's a little bit off. It is keeping up, but still, remember the name of the game, if you're going to hold alts, you have to hold alts that move faster than Bitcoin. Short-term period is fine, but long-term, if you're holding alts for many, many years and it's still underperforming versus Bitcoin, well, then you're just holding the wrong alt, because that totally defeats the purpose, right? Johnny, I agree. Fed needs to chill, and we need a break. The progress we made with inflation is unfolding. How much do you think was spent on the banks? Well, I mean, it's been reported $300 billion so far. Yeah, it's been reported as $300 billion. I think they have I don't have a chart, but that's just like within the last 2 weeks. Imagine all the banks that need a bailout, and more could be reported this week. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more. Where does money go? Doesn't it make you wonder, where did the money go? Or are they all parked in bonds that are worthless, you know? Can you talk about pros and cons and ordinals? Pros, it brings more people to space. Pros, it'll appreciate vastly in the future. Cons, it fills the blocks with more information. People argue it could clog up the blocks. That's it. Possible Silvergate stock price will recover above 15. I think that's a pipe dream. It's kind of like when Celsius went under and Voyager went under, and people are still buying the tokens thinking that it's a great play. No, I mean, it's not. I don't think so. Silvergate, even though it has a new CEO, and I think they're trying to sell themselves right now, I don't think they're going to make any kind of recovery. I just don't see it. The old question, Solana or Avalanche? I would go Avalanche. Avalanche, they have a lot of things going. They have a partnership with Amazon. They have NFTs. They have bridges. They have a lot of things going. Solana, on the other hand, I think their volume is mostly driven by their NFT market, and they just suffered another outage. And it's just one too many. Actually, it's like 10 too many, right? Oh, I forgot to show you guys this. Speaking of outages, this is looking at Bitcoin's outages. It's been 3,651 days since the last downtime. We had 100% uptime for 2022, 2021, all the way going back to 2013. There was a slight hiccup, and there was a slight hiccup in 2010. But outside those two slight hiccups, we basically had how many years? 100% uptime. It's the most stable network we have on the planet. And not only that, it's the most secure network on the planet. As far as I know, there has been no hacks since the very beginning. So that's also something. People that argue, well, Bitcoin has no value. Okay, this in itself is worth trillions. Try to come up with another network that has stability like this and security like this, and one that governments cannot control. Try to do it. No one on the planet can replicate this network, because it will be, first of all, it'll be shut down right away. Because no matter which country you create it on, it's going to belong to that country, basically, right? They're going to be able to shut it down. But you can't shut down Bitcoin. It's not in any one country, spread across the globe. I mean, so my point is this: you can't replicate this network anymore. This is kind of like once in a lifetime. So that in itself is worth trillions. Rod, BTC leads the market, but with Adam, I've been making 2122 APY with the coins in my private wallet. Bitcoin just sits my cold wallet's thoughts. 22 APY means nothing if the price of the token itself is heading downwards. That's the thing you got to be careful about. Adam can't give you so much APY because it inflates that much every year. That's how it's able to pay. So keep that in mind. It's not just free coins. There is repercussions to it. Now, of course, if the demand is up, the price of Atom is still going to go higher, right? But there's always repercussions. Why won't Sol die already? Because there's still a lot of people that hold Sol tokens and still use the network. That's why. Bam says someone owns him in ginger ale. Okay. Okay. Quinn Developments, I'm glad to hear that, and you're welcome. Let's see. Thoughts on a Red Robin burger? They're good. I haven't had Red Robin in a long time. They're good, but I remember they're quite pricey. Skip. Alts always seem to have very risky bet, especially now. How many alts do you see surviving in long term, say 10 years from now? Is there a reason why gold and silver were money for 5,000 years? Or there is a reason why gold and silver were money for... See, alts are not money. That's the thing. Alts are technology companies. But here's the thing. It's very hard to kill alts. Very, very hard. All the alts that came out like during the early days, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, they still exist. It's just that no one talks about them. But the network, most of the networks are still running. A lot of exchanges still sell their coins. So it's really hard to actually kill alts unless it committed fraud and it's shut down. But so how many alts will survive in the next 10 years? They'll be around. Almost everything you see will still be around. Will they be popular? Will they be worth anything? That's a different story. So I've said this already. The only crypto that I believe will be around, meaning that it's still going to be relevant and big and used and has achieved global adoption in the next 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, the only one I could truly say for certainty is Bitcoin. Everything else I think will be replaced with something better. They're just like technology companies, right? So it's just like saying, look at, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, right? Will they ever get replaced? Right now, it seems like unlikely. Nothing will touch them. No one is close, right? But what about in another 100 years? What about in 200 years, 1,000 years? You don't know. That's the future, right? You don't know if something else comes better and maybe future leadership of these companies screw up, right? You don't know. So that's kind of how these alts are. They're future companies, but they can be replaced. That's how I see it. And they don't compete with Bitcoin. That's why I don't feel like any Bitcoin maxi that wants to bash alts, there's no need. If you truly understand what alts are and what Bitcoin is, they don't compete with each other at all. How tiny can Big Macs get? We will see in the next 5 to 10 years. All right, guys, let's conclude. Bitcoin is itching to push higher. Unfortunately, it hasn't pushed past 28,000, but I think it's just a matter of time. I think this week we're going to see more bad banking news. We're also going to get the FOMC meeting, which I think is going to be good. But overall, Bitcoin is being strengthened right now, will only get stronger, and better days are coming. So smash the like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.